And so it's only by breaking through the two-party system that you actually are able to, like, start that conversation. The problem is that if you have you lead with the policy, then you wind up getting trapped in the left-right ideological spectrum, and you immediately lose the ability to actually do any good in Mississippi, Missouri, Arkansas, Alaska. And right now we're in like this 50-50 nation. If you come in leading with policies that are like conventionally left-leaning, then you end up becoming like, slotted into this left-right ideological spectrum, and you're giving up on every rural area, every red state, et cetera, et cetera.
So I've actually seen that not happen on the local level, and I'll give you an example with my state, and I'll give you an example with a red state like Nebraska, right? For example, when it comes to the local level, progressive policies are actually passing. So in Massachusetts, for example, we passed $15 minimum wage years ago. So some states are catching on to this now, but we did that like years ago. We passed legalization for marijuana. Again, 6 years ago. We just now passed the millionaires tax, which these are a lot of the policies that like Bernie Sanders and the squad ran under, right? But even when you look at these red states that are ballot initiative states, they're also passing progressive policies. Like Nebraska just passed $15 minimum wage. South Dakota just passed Medicaid expansion. So on the local level, what I've found is if you just give people the questions, those ballot initiative questions, and it's not attached to a candidate, therefore it's not attached to a political party, the people just focus on the question at hand and vote with what they really feel because they're not attaching it to a party. So on the local level, those progressive policies have actually passed. Now, to your point about universal health care, Ro Khanna actually told me so himself on this show, similar to what you said. He said, Sabrina, there's no way we're going to get Medicare for all unless we have a president, a House, and a Senate that wants it all at once. Because even if the president was like Bernie Sanders and he did it by executive order, the House could come in and veto it. So he kind of like woke me up to that as well, as to like, well, then how do we move forward here? But when I talk about the progressive policies, I point this out because the exit polls did show that the majority of Americans do want health care for everyone. And so for people like us, like those of us coming from that Bernie Sanders movement, where do we go in reference to a third party? Because if I look at forward party and I don't see that there's policies, well, then I don't really know what this is.
I think this really is the conversation I want to have with you. So first, let me say, like, I 1,000% agree that if you actually get the proposal in front of Nebraskans or South Dakotans or whatever, they'll look at it and be like, oh, I mean, we just campaigned for a ballot initiative in Nevada that does away with party primaries and lets anyone vote for anyone. By the way, both parties were against it, and it passed 52-48. So those people who think we're trapped, it's like, look, you get enough Nevadans fired up about it, they're like, yeah. And I was in Nevada campaigning for it, and the average Nevadan was like, just means that anyone can vote for anyone. Like, I'm for it. And the independent was like, yeah, I can actually vote in the primary. So you're in that environment where you, again, have anyone able to vote for anything, then you can see some really interesting developments, like the way you're describing in Nebraska or other places, which, by the way, those ballot initiatives, I'm sure it was like a lot of, blood, sweat, and tears making them happen, because, like these things aren't easy. And the major thing that we'd want to help, and this is something and this is based upon my actually going through the system and trying to figure it out, Sabrina. And this is my best conclusion. So intelligent people can disagree with my conclusion, but but just I'll tell you what the conclusion is. Is that so? Let's say that you want really good things to happen for people, and you articulate those good things as universal health care and a couple of other measures. And you're looking at the country writ large, and then you're saying, you know what, we need a third party, which, by the way, we totally do. I sense that you're very open to it, but 74% of folks who are left-leaning think we do. 62% of the general population does. I mean, like it's the average person thinks that we need a third party. So here's the game that they'll play, and our answer, you can disagree with it, whatever, is that people mean different things when they say we need a third party. Like what you're saying is like, you know what I'd love? A third party that like is for these three things. Then I'd be like, yeah, I'd get into it. Then you talk to someone who's in Arkansas or Mississippi or whatever, like they think something else when they think third party. Like maybe they think term limits and anti-corruption and some other things. Like who knows? That we all have like a different configuration of what we want that third party to be running around banging the drum about. But the game that the two-party system will play is the two-party system will say, see, like these people are for this, and thus you must shun and hate them. And whatever we chose on any of like the litmus test issues, like that's the game they'd play. And so what we're saying is like, hey, you want a third party? You want a third party? Like, and this is as someone who's actually dug into the rules, and you sound like you dug into the rules too. It's like, what they'll do is they'll slice and dice us so that, and by the way, I think this happened to the People's Party. So I can use them as an example. And where the People's Party stood up and said, hey, wherefore, like, XYZ, various progressive things, they attracted the people that are naturally attracted to that. And then they got pigeonholed and like stuck in a particular place. They weren't, as far as I can tell, they weren't able to get ballot access, which by the way is like an extraordinary organizational lift. You need like, tens of thousands of man and woman hours, some money, some legal resources, and then you need to do that 50 different times in different places. If you had to throw a dollar value on it, it's like, probably 8 figures or something like that. So then the People's Party said, hey, we're for these things. And then they never got past like a certain stage because it turns out that this is a massive organization building challenge if you're going to actually like try and get on the ballot in all these different places. So the choice we made was to say, look, we are for free people, thriving communities, and a vibrant democracy. And the policy stuff, like the approach to healthcare, the approach to different things, like we can hash out after we've actually made a fair system that enables the people to vote how they want and to be able to have a seat at the table. And my argument to folks who are on the traditional left is to say, look, you don't have to agree with me or disagree with me on anything except that we need a better voting system that enables you to vote for whomever you want, and that there are new entrants that can come in that are not bought and sold. Now, if we have our way, and this is the Kim Iverson argument, if we have our way, let's say the Forward Party is like this massive success, and then we come in and then we open the system up, you could just turn around and then start a new party that's oriented around any idea you want, and it might actually have a chance to succeed in a way that it does not right now. Right now, you can't do it because there's no ballot access. You're going to get shut out. You're going to get suppressed in various ways. And it's a lost cause unless you've actually created a system that enables people to have a fair shot. So our argument is to go around the country and be like, don't you want a fair shot? Don't you want to have a real conversation? Don't you want to have your vote matter? And then gather together people who have different visions of what they want to accomplish at the policy level to come in and say, look, I might not agree with my fellow Americans and everything, but I know that we deserve a voice, we deserve a shot. And then after you make that change, then we can sit down and hash out what the heck we want to do to make people's lives better.
So this sounds more like an umbrella of sorts, where there could be different like fractions up under it.
Very much so. And so this is one of the arguments I'm making is like I do not want to prescribe to the people in various states like what the heck they want to see after they get to a point where they can make choices for themselves in Nebraska or wherever. It's like we want to create the environment where people can decide after they have the choices, be like, okay, this is what I want to see. And the game that's being played against us right now that I think the People's Party has fallen into is like you have this like ideological spectrum, and they just want to slot you in the spectrum and then pat you on the head and be like, you know what, you're fucked. Because after you've essentially raised your hand and said like, hey, here's where I am, it's like you're going to get your like sprinkling of followers and like modest resources, but you will not be able to make a change in this like two-sided billion-dollar behemoth system. And I don't know if people sense this about me, but I'm actually like someone who like looks at the numbers and is like, okay, like how can I make this happen? Like how can I run for president? Okay, let me figure that out. How can I help change the system? This is what I've determined is the most effective way to change the system. My challenge to people who want to change the system is that you should be open to working with people that might not see eye to eye with you on like certain things. Because if you say like, look, I'm only going to work with people who are with me on like X, Y, and Z, you're too small. You don't have the money. You don't have the resources. You will maybe like you'll be around people that agree with you on certain things, but it will not build a big enough coalition.
So you mentioned MPP, and I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to go there. There were a lot of people that were really excited about moving for a People's Party when it first started, right? So it's been 5 years. They haven't run candidates even on the local level. Like you said, ballot access was a big issue that they ran into as well. But there have been other problems that have happened with MPP, as well as organizational structure issues and personality issues as well. And here's what I don't want to see. I don't want to see people, because like I said, a lot of people are hungry for another third party. I don't want to see people get their hopes up again only to have them crushed because once again, we got excited about something that we thought was going to be a thing. And it just seems like I still go back to the policies, Andrew. I'm a policy person. I'm really big on that. I hear what you're saying, how this would function.
I've historically been a policy person, but Sabrina, I've gotten radicalized in a particular way where now, I think most of these policies will never see the light of day unless the system changes. So and so to me now the challenge is like, okay, how can we actually change the system? But proceed, because it sounds like I'm about to learn something about the People's Party.
Yeah, so there were a lot of issues with the People's Party. There were personality issues, there were accusations, there were complaints, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but people have seen me talk about it before on the show with those involved as well. But when I'm talking about the policies, the reason why I take it back to that, there are a number of people in the United States right now that will not vote for anyone who is not supporting reparations. That is a big movement that's happening right now in the United States. There are a number of people that will not support a party or a candidate that does not support universal health care or does not support an increase in the minimum wage or these economic issues and social issues as well. But you can also say reparations is still an economic issue. So these are some of the problems that candidates running through this party may run into. And what do they say if they approach a group of people and someone in the crowd says, well, do you support reparations? Does this party support reparations? That's a big one.
Yeah, so I'll describe a meeting I had with a group of ministers in West Chicago who are Black, and they don't think that the Democratic Party has necessarily been delivering for them and their community, and so they've become forward aligned. Now, I support a political system where we can actually have good things happen for people in a way that's not possible under the current system. And we're in many ways a successor to a third-party movement that was led by a Black woman named Honora Fulani, where she was the first Black woman to get on the ballot in all 50 states as an independent in 1988. And in my mind, this system is not working for a lot of people. Certainly for people of color have like a very strong claim to the fact that the system's not working for you, your families, your communities. That's what these ministers in West Chicago have concluded. And so we've come together to say, let's try and change that. Let's try and change the system. Now, if someone says to me like, hey, like, will this party be for X? My challenge to them is be like, well, it will be if you join and then make the case and get enough people on your side. Because Andrew Yang's not defining what this party is for and not for. So like organize and become part of the party and let's figure it out, or like let's change the system and then you can make your case to people around the country. But if you set that up as a threshold in the beginning, you're just playing into their hands. When I say their hands, I mean the two parties' hands, where they're just like they're being like, we're untouchable, can't touch us, need $1 billion, you're fucked. And like that's uh, going to continue until we're willing to make common cause with people who are at least open-minded enough to say, like, you know what, like I'm not going to like necessarily run around like like having concluded what the best answers are. But I respect your humanity. Like I love my fellow Americans, and after we make these changes, I'm willing to sit and listen to anyone's solution that's going to help move them and theirs forward.